Oh, hi, Joel Buddy Zoo here, and I've had the AYN Odin 3 for a little over a month. I've taken it with me on long trips, I've used it to play old games, I've used it to play new games, and I kind of want to do something a little bit different today. Now, this isn't a specs video, it's not a deep dive, it's definitely not a hype video. This is just the honest truth about what it's like to use the Odin 3 as your primary everyday handheld for a month. Like I said last week when I reviewed the AYN Thor, one of the worst parts about being a tech reviewer is the amount of stuff you get. And the problem with that is you don't really get to enjoy things. Stuff comes in, stuff goes out, you gotta do videos, you got pressure to do X, Y, and Z, and you can't just really sit, you can't simmer with a handheld. But I made a conscious effort with the Odin 3 here not to let that happen. And the Odin 3 did not disappoint. It offers amazing performance. I mean, it hasn't even peaked yet, we're still waiting on turnip drivers, but it has amazing performance right now, with more to come. And so after a month of daily use, I mean, I play this before I go to bed. I play it on the couch. I play it when I'm doing Game of the Month. I play it during my lunch break at work. Don't tell my boss. But after a whole month of that, I'm ready to go into a comprehensive, sort of lived-in review. Let's get this out of the way, right off the bat. The Odin 3 is clearly an Endgame handheld, but it's not my Endgame handheld. The reasons this isn't my Endgame device might be super different than yours, and they're almost certainly flavored by the embarrassment of handheld devices that I own. So I'm going to try to break this down in such a way you can go, oh, I get why he said that, because he likes to play this sort of game, instead of calling me an idiot because the Odin 3 isn't my forever device. Although, let's be honest, a lot of people are still going to call me an idiot in the comments. It's my destiny. Let's talk about how I use this thing for a month, because that's really going to inform my opinions on the Odin 3. I used it for lower end stuff, like I played NES, I played Game Boy Advance, I played regular Game Boy, pretty much everything up through PlayStation 1. I also played some middle tier games on PlayStation 2 and GameCube. I put a fair amount of time into Switch emulation, and we're going to have a whole little section on that and driver compatibility, but I also did a ton of PC gaming on here, which surprised me so much, I did a dedicated video on it. I think playing a wide selection of games on this over a month or more of ownership has kind of exposed what I liked, what I didn't like, and what I was surprised about, mostly because they were things I stopped noticing. So let's start with that. Let's talk about the things I stopped noticing while I was using the Odin 3. Games on here ran the same way every time I launched them, and outside of pushing Gamehub, thermals never really creeped up on here for me. I didn't even have to really reconfigure my power or my fan settings unless I was playing PC titles or some Switch games that were really pushing the limits. There weren't any surprises, there weren't constant reconfiguration, and nothing erodes trust in a device faster than unpredictability. And I think the Odin 3 earned a lot of my trust over time because it was extremely predictable. You turned it on, it worked. I stopped thinking about battery life on here because, again, outside of some crazy high-end Gamehub stuff, I was getting anywhere from 3 to 12 hours of gameplay. Depending on what game you're playing, you average about 3, maybe 4 hours before you kill the battery playing Switch. You get about 6 hours for your PS2 and your GameCube stuff, and then over 12 hours playing actual retro games. Like, you could play NES on here from 6 in the morning until you pass out around 10 p.m., and you're not going to kill the battery. It's pretty awesome. I also never thought, is this worth booting up right now? Sometimes it makes a lot of sense to pull out a dedicated device for a specific game. Like, if I'm going to play 3DS, I'm probably going to go to the Thor, because it has 2 screens. But I'm also that kind of lunatic who's going to dig out his 34XX just to play one Game Boy Advance game. Or I'll root around for 20 minutes trying to find my 40XXV, because I got a hankering for some original Tetris. Now that's a personal preference, and it's probably because I got so many form factors that I feel bad for not using them. But the Odin 3 is one of those devices that's going to play everything. Your dual screen experience isn't going to be authentic, but it still works very well. And then everything else runs fantastically, which some exceptions we'll cover next. And I think that's important because if a device feels like effort, you're not going to use it as much. And then you'll regret buying it. Then you're going to be bummed out instead of playing your sweet as hell magical handheld that would have been considered legitimate dark magic, even just 10 years ago. Speaking of that performance and versatility, let's talk about what works well on here. PS2 and GameCube are rock solid. Even hard to run games will work upscaled anywhere from 2 to 3x, and there's no fiddling around. You don't need to mess with underclocking to get your PS2 games running flawlessly. You just load the game, crank up the resolution, and it runs. Switch emulation on here is better than I was led to believe, especially with the doom and gloom over drivers. It's not perfect. There are glitches and weird stuff popping up, and in a lot of cases, the Odin 2 line outperforms the Odin 3 because it all comes down to drivers. They are the bottleneck right now, and we're still waiting on those magic turnip drivers that are going to bump up FPS, all while eliminating flickering or missing textures. All that being said, there's still a ton of stuff that runs great using nightly Eden builds, and while nothing is guaranteed, those updated drivers are pretty much on the way. They've started trickle releasing them, and I think it's just a matter of time. So if you want to play flawless Switch games right now, then the Odin 3 isn't it. But if you want to take like a 90% chance on this thing getting exponentially better, maybe get one and wait for driver support to mature. And finally, PC gaming. I did a dedicated video on Gamehub performance on the Odin 3, and I'm not going to regurgitate the whole video, but too long didn't read. I was blown away by how many games played right out of the box and how well those games did play. I was able to play a lot of my Old Man Zoo Tactics games at medium performance settings, and then I was able to play some more frenetic games when I bumped up the settings to high. It's really cool. It incorporates your cloud saves from Steam, and it's almost like taking a mini Steam Deck with you in a lot of situations. Now, I took the Odin 3 as my solo device to CES, but I wanted to play Final Fantasy Tactics for Game of the Month. On a lark, I loaded it from my Steam library before I left, and I played more than half the game either in the airport, on the plane, or while chilling at our Airbnb. Super impressive and also super convenient. That brings me to my next point about the Odin 3. What surprised me the most during my month and change with this device wasn't peak performance, it was consistency. The Odin 3 doesn't feel fragile. It doesn't feel like it's one update away from breaking your setup. It's not a device where you're waiting for a patch or a third-party custom firmware to fix it. It plays everything super well outside of Switch, and like I said before, I think Switch is just a matter of time. But yeah, just the consistency of knowing I could pick this up, even if I forgot to charge it overnight, and it would turn on, it'd run for a while, and play damn near anything I threw at it, and have room for more. And that was amazing. Alright, Zoo, so if the Odin 3 is so amazing, why isn't it your endgame device? Well, it's because of Ambernick. Alright, everybody, settle down, settle down. This isn't a heel turn uber shill moment where I try to tell you that Ambernick has this thing beat, because they don't. But Ambernick, for the most part at least, stays out of AYN's lane. They make cheap and durable devices, and they also make devices that are well suited for specific platforms. Case in point, the RG477V and its 4.7-inch 4x3 screen. This son of a and his friends have ruined 4x3 on widescreen devices for me. Even in situations where the overall screen is bigger, like if we're firing up the Odin 2 Portal just to play some Super Mario Brothers, I still keep coming back to this form factor, at least for my 4x3 content, and to some extent, my 1x1 Game Boy and Game Boy Color games. Is the Odin 3 better than the 4G77V? Yes, in all conceivable metrics, except for 4x3. And by dint of being Captain Leaderboard in our Discord Game of the Month Club, I play a ton of 4x3 content, and it just feels a little off when I do it on the Odin 3. And I know you can put bezels on here, and bezels do help, they help a lot, but some weird part of my brain is mad at me when I play Legend of Zelda on here, when it knows Anbernic and its multiple 4x3 king devices are in my desk drawer. Another thing I noticed, because I actually play a lot of retro games on my retro handhelds, which is a weird notion, I know, is that the D-pad here starts to become somewhat of a hindrance when you're playing games that also use the shoulder buttons a lot. So I played Mega Man Zero in here, and the L and R buttons are used a ton for dashing and for your secondary weapon attacks. More casual games that use the shoulders more sparingly, yeah, no big deal. But Mega Man Zero was stressing me the out. My control scheme had L for my melee weapon, and it gets used a ton, because Zero here doesn't swap out blaster powers. No! He levels up his sword and his spear, and a lot of bosses, and even normal enemies, require melee attacks. And it just gets worse when you're trying to adjust your grip to successfully use this 8-way spear attack here. Super minor issue, more of a casual observation, honestly, but it's something I noticed just recently at the end of my month with this device, and it's really a quirk, that might never apply to you, but that's kind of the benefit of really using a device, just immersing yourself in it as opposed to trying to get a comprehensive review out within a few days of a handheld showing up. But by putting those little issues, they're really just personal qualms aside, the Odin 3 could easily be an endgame device for a lot of people, maybe most people, and it all comes down to the overall versatility and usability of the device. If you're not a crazy person with 3 Anbernic 4.7-inch 4x3 beasts, then the black bars on the side of the screens probably aren't going to be a big deal. It's going to be an endgame device to you. And keep in mind that this is still like beta mode Odin 3. Even if the Switch performance never materializes, I have almost 100% faith that PC gaming will improve, especially if the Steam frame ends up dragging the Android x86 translation level even further along. Big x86 devices are amazing, but they're intentional devices. I love the Legion Go S, I love my Xbox Ally, but there's a whole mindset to using them. It is a deliberate choice to pack them up in their travel bags with their chargers. Meanwhile, the Odin 3 is casual in the very best way. It's the handheld you grab because you want to play a game. It's probably already in your bag or it's on your nightstand, and it can give those x86 boys a run for their money. It's actually quite amazing. Well, Gary, the clock on the wall says it's time for What Did We Learn? And we learned that excitement fades for these devices, but the Odin 3 is still surprising me. We learned that consistency is important in a device, and the Odin 3 is rock steady, and we learned that the best handheld is the one you reach for when you're tired, you're busy, or you're not trying to impress anyone. And after 1 month, the Odin 3 didn't just hold up, it settled in, and that's not really something you can benchmark. Now, like I said, I still have those annoying little thoughts in my head when I'm playing 4x3 content, and I have noticed that the D-pad being on the bottom makes certain shoulder button-centric games a little uncomfortable, but neither of those issues made me actually stop using the Odin 3. I thought about it, but then I finished Mega Man Zero on here, and I'm still having a blast with Legend of Zelda on here. It's an endgame device in all but name only, and honestly, it's probably just because I'm a little bit crazy that I'm not saying it is an endgame device. But if you do like a little bit of crazy, and especially if you like this long-term honest breakdown kind of video, let me know in the comments. I kind of want to do more of these videos where there's less hype, more lived-in experience, and I really just want to let the device breathe a little bit. So please remember to like, subscribe, ring the bell, all that jazz. We've got my weekly videos, we got a podcast, we got random live streams. We're sitting at just a little bit under 90,000 subs. And if everyone who watches this video hit that sub button, by God, we'd be at 100,000 by the end of the week. And I just realized I'm only 5 videos away from my 200th episode of Zoo Reviews. Wouldn't making that 200th video a special 100K celebration be something, huh? Think about it. Think about the power you have. And think about what sort of crazy video you'd want to see when we do hit 100,000 subs. Let me know your ideas in the comments. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.